I know, I know, I know. I'm so last minute with this video. I'm asking that you please bear with me though. Week 5 Bible read challenge. Let's go. Hey. Week 5 Bible read challenge. Let's go. Let's go, y'all. All right, so we back. We got to do the week 4 recap though. Genesis chapter 25 through 46. And boy, oh boy, Abraham marries his third wife. You know, his first wife was Sarah. Then she talked him into marrying her slave girl Hagar, had a baby with her. Now he's marrying a third woman named Keturah. Keturah has 6 sons by Abraham. Abraham lives to be 175 years old. He leaves all his stuff to Isaac and he dies. Then we get into the story of Jacob and Esau, born of Isaac and Rebekah. The children struggled inside of her womb. So she asked God, like, why are these kids fighting inside of me? And the Lord answered, telling her that there are 2 nations in her womb. 2 peoples will come out of her and be separated. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. So this is what God is telling her to explain what's going on in her womb. Fast forward, God reaffirms his promise to Isaac by telling him that the same promise he gave to Abraham through him, he has not forgotten. Through the lineage of Abraham and Isaac, God will bring forth many nations. Around the age of 40, Esau winds up getting married. He's the oldest brother. He marries some Hittite women. Apparently, the family did not approve of this because the scriptures say that these women made Isaac and Rebekah's life miserable. Now, Rebekah favored her son Jacob, while the father Isaac favored his son Esau. Rebekah later on helps her favorite son Jacob deceive the dad Isaac. In his old age, he was going blind. Rebekah talked her son into this trickery plan of tricking Isaac into blessing him over his brother Esau, when traditionally the older brother was to get the blessing. When Esau found out about this, he became so angry. He was like heated. He wanted to kill his brother. I mean, I understand the deception and everything like that when he was still expecting the blessing, but before all this transpired, we read that out of desperation of hunger, Esau actually went to Jacob and sold his birthright to him. Jacob was like, well, if I can get that birthright, you can get some food. They made that exchange back then. Like, first of all, Esau, why are you so mad? You already sold your birthright. And then why did y'all even conspire and do all this deception to Esau in the first place when God said it was going to happen? They didn't have to be deceptive about it. I look at that a lot in the scripture. You see God telling these people what he's going to do, and then you see them, just like us, trying to make this stuff happen in their own will, which causes them to sin, essentially. Sarah did the same thing. If she would have just believed God said he was going to do what he was going to do, bring forth many nations through her womb with her promised son Isaac, instead she goes and gives her husband to be married to a slave girl, gets her pregnant. Now we got all these baby mamas involved. Reading this just makes me really want to be mindful of how I move in my situation. I'm guilty of it a lot of times, just trying to intervene on what God said he was going to do, just in a rush. The word says that if we wait on the Lord, he will renew our strength. He will mount us up on wings like eagles. We'll run and not grow weary. We'll walk and not faint. Patience is a virtue. Why is it so hard for us to wait on the Lord? Why is it so hard for us to relinquish our control? I don't want to be in control. Lord, I want you to be in control. I want you to align things up to your perfect and pleasing will. Like, I want it to happen the way you want it to happen, because when I try to force things, it's going to come with a whole lot of friction that could have been avoided if I just walk in patience and obedience and faith. Especially when God already confirmed to you that he said he was going to do something. Just wait on the Lord. He will renew our strength. Amen. Because of Esau's fury, Rebekah and Isaac instructed Jacob to go live with Rebekah's brother, his uncle Laban. Give Esau some years to go in and cool down so that we don't have a Cain and Abel part 2. But they also didn't want him going over there and then marrying a Canaanite woman, because apparently Esau's Hittite wives were already giving him hell. Eventually, Jacob meets one of the daughters of Laban, his uncle Laban, which is Rachel. He really was attracted to her. He wanted to marry her. Him and Uncle Laban make a deal. He got to work for him for 7 years to give him his daughter to be married to. Instead, Jacob met his match when it came to the trickery and deception, because his uncle Laban actually married him off to his oldest daughter, Leah. And that was the one that he didn't want. And when Jacob found out about this, he was just like, hey, it's tradition for you to marry the oldest daughter first. Do another 7 years of labor for me, and I'll give you my youngest daughter's hand in marriage as well. There he is, 14 years in, having to do all this work so he can get the woman that he wants. But that boy put in that work. Rachel must have been something else. So now, here you got Jacob. He got 2 wives, Leah and Rachel. They sisters. Leah's having all his sons. She had like 4 boys. Rachel's barren. She's not even giving birth to any of his kids. So then it becomes this competition. Rachel gives her servant girl off to her husband so that she can bring forth babies through her servant girl. That was a lot of times what women did traditionally in that culture when they were barren or couldn't have children. They would give their slave girls or their servant girls off to their husbands to marry, and then they would have the slave girl basically have a bunch of children for their husband on their behalf. And it just became this baby making contest. Then Leah, I think she might have had a couple more sons. Leah gets her servant girl to marry Jacob and start giving him a bunch of babies. So now you got everybody just like having babies by Jacob. Meanwhile, Rachel still ain't had her baby. And then all of a sudden, God remembered Rachel and opened up her womb. And then she brings forth the birth of Joseph. Now, Joseph's story is so powerful. He winds up becoming one of the most powerful men in Egypt, next to Pharaoh. God was going to give Rachel a son, but here we see again women just taking matters into their own hands. And now you got your man sleeping with all these women, everybody having his baby, when God was going to remember you and give you your seed when the timing was right. But hey, they did it how they wanted to do it, and this is what happened. So Jacob started to just have a lot of favor on his life. His flocks were multiplying. It was causing a lot of just issues because Laban had like a trickery and a jealousy issue. He had a spirit on him. Jacob flees from his uncle Laban eventually, and he goes and he takes his family, his flocks, all his stuff he worked for over the years. And after he did his bid, he got out of there. Uncle Laban hunts Jacob down, accusing him of stealing and all kind of stuff. They eventually make a covenant and an agreement of peace, and they settle things there. And so now Jacob's in a peacemaking mode. So he decides he wants to go ahead and make peace with his brother too. Jacob prepares to reunite with his brother Esau after more than probably 20 years of being separated because of this situation. And they reunite and they hug, they kiss, and they wept. Leah and Jacob have a daughter named Dinah. Dinah winds up getting raped by this dude named Shechem, which is Hamar's son. When Jacob, her father, finds out about this, he keeps it on the low at first. He eventually going to tell the brothers. The father of Shechem comes to him and says, hey, my son is really feeling your daughter. Let's arrange for them to get married. But Shechem and Hamar, they are not of Jacob's people. Jacob and the brothers basically decide to play along and act like they're going to be down for a wedding, but they give them one condition. All the men in Shechem and Hamar's tribes need to get circumcised like the men of Israel and become one nation. That's the only way they're saying that they're going to give Dinah over to Shechem to marry him. Meanwhile, I don't even think Hamar, the father of Shechem, knows Jacob and the brothers are aware of this rape situation. So Hamar and Shechem agree, and they say, okay, cool, we'll go ahead and get circumcised. We're going to round up all the men in our tribe. The men were down with it, and they went ahead and made that agreement. So all the men in their tribe get circumcised. And then it says, like, on the second day, when they were healing from their circumcision, all of a sudden, Jacob got 2 sons. They Leah's sons, actually. Simeon and Levi. They was like, psych. They came out of nowhere with swords. It says they killed every male in their city. They went stupid for their sister, right in the midst of them healing from circumcision wounds. How brutal. But they didn't have no mercy on them because they felt like, hey, Shechem didn't have no mercy on our sister Dinah, and we don't play that. And then Jacob is like, yo, y'all done made the block extremely hot. They gonna rise against me. Now it's just about to cause a whole lot of problems. And they looked at their dad like, sorry, not sorry. Are we going to just sit up there and let these men treat our sister like a prostitute? That was their response to Jacob. So they pretty much stood on business with that. So after all of this commotion, God just tells Jacob, look, go to Bethel and settle there. So as they're journeying to Bethel, meanwhile, his wife Rachel, his boo, is pregnant again with Joseph's youngest brother. She winds up dying while giving birth to her second son. It says she took her last breath and named him Ben-Oni. I don't know if it's Ben-Oni, Ben-Ani. I'm not good with these names. I just be sounding them out. But she passed away and Jacob wound up naming him Benjamin. That's what they called him. After the death of Jacob's favorite wife, his boo thing, Rachel, dies. So his father died after him losing his wife Rachel. Super sad. Esau and Jacob get together and they bury their father Isaac. God renames Jacob Israel after the wrestling match between him and God. Once he is called Israel, at that time in total he now has 12 sons, and this is how we get to the 12 tribes of Israel. So we got Reuben, Levi, Simeon, Nebulun, Issachar, and Judah. So those are 6 that he had with Leah, his first wife, the oldest one who he got tricked into marrying. Then we know Rachel's sons were the babies, Joseph and Benjamin. Rachel's slave Bilhah had Dan and Naphtali, and then Leah's slave Zilpah had Gad and Asher. And then it gets into, kind of naming off Esau's family line as well. It talks about the rulers in Edom at the time. Then we start to focus on Joseph, Rachel's firstborn of her own womb, the favored son who was given the colorful coat. He starts to have these dreams, and these dreams displease his brothers. They upset them quite a bit. They were already jealous because he was favored by his father, but then now he's having the audacity to tell them that he's having dreams about them bowing down to him. They conspired together with a plan and sold him into slavery. So I'm sure that was like a tragic journey he was on. In the background of all this, Judah had moved away, one of the brothers, and one of his sons married this girl named Tamar. Now, it says that Tamar's husband was evil in the Lord's sight, so God took his life. He marries another one of his sons off to Tamar. This son was instructed to help keep his brother's family line going by impregnating Tamar, becoming her husband, giving her some kids. However, he won't feeling it. So every time he would have intercourse with her, it said he would take his semen and put it on the floor instead of, allowing it to do what it needed to do to give her some babies. That was actually evil in the Lord's sight. And so God took his life. And then after he dies, Judah looks at his daughter-in-law and says, hey, you just going to have to go live with the widows for a second. And I got another son. When he grows up, I'm going to marry him off to you. But when that son grew up, Judah did not keep his word and marry him off to her so that she can have babies and not be disgraced with widowhood. She hears that Judah is coming into town to do some things, and so she leaves this widow place, disguises herself as a prostitute, and goes and gives herself unto Judah. Judah ends up engaging in sexual intercourse with her, not knowing who she is because her face was covered. As she would engage in sexual intercourse with him, she would take an article from him. When the message came to Judah that Tamar had acted like a prostitute and now is pregnant, he instructed them to bring her out and let her be burned. And she's like, well, before Judah makes that judgment, bring him these articles, let him examine the items that belong to the baby daddy. He recognizes everything. He's like, oh wow, all this stuff belongs to me. And then at that moment he admitted, like, I'm more wrong than she is at this point. He never slept with her again. Her life was spared. She was pregnant and she wound up having twins, Perez and Zerah. So then we flash back to Joseph's life. He is now in Potiphar's house. That is his master. And Potiphar has a lot of favor on him. He gets accused, falsely accused of rape, might I add, and he's thrown into jail. In jail, he eventually starts interpreting dreams of his prison mates. That led to him eventually being able to interpret a dream that Pharaoh had. That eventually led to him being exalted to the highest place of authority in Egypt next to Pharaoh. Then his brothers journey, because of a big famine going on, they journey to Egypt. And now he is reunited with his brothers. He finds out his father is still alive. They go get the father, Jacob. He's almost on his deathbed, but they are able to see each other. That was an emotional reunion, as you can imagine. Jacob says, hey, now I've seen my son, I can die, because he was very heartbroken, obviously, when his favorite son went missing. And this whole time he was under the impression that he was dead. And actually God was taking him through a journey that was actually going to save his family's life. It was just so much purpose in that pain. So that's touching to me. That was a heck of a recap. So now we're going to get into reading assignments for week 5 of our Bible reading challenge. So day 29, we're going to be reading Genesis chapter 47, 48, 49, and 50. Oh, and then we finished Genesis. Now we're into Exodus, you guys. So we got 2 books down. We finished Genesis and Job. All right, so now day 30, we're going to get into Exodus chapter 1, 2, and 3. Day 31, we're doing Exodus chapter 4, 5, and 6. Day 32, we're doing Exodus chapter 7, 8, and 9. Day 33, we're doing Exodus chapter 10, 11, and 12. Day 34, we're doing Exodus chapter 13, 14, and 15. Day 35, we're doing Exodus chapter 16, 17, and 18. And that concludes week 5's reading assignment. And you guys, if you are just watching this video for the first time and you want to participate in a Bible reading challenge, by the grace of God, hopefully you still got 365 days left on this earth. Don't try to wait till next January because you didn't start on January 1st with the rest of us. You can start now and you can just have a rolling 365 days. The time that God is giving you under the face of the earth, this is an opportunity for you to discover all that is in his word in 1 year so that you can get what you need to get out of this book. This is literally the manual to our lives. So it's so important that we read it. If you haven't started already, it is not too late to go ahead and pick up now. I'm going to close out with our scripture for this challenge, which is Psalm chapter 119, verses 18. Open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. God bless you guys. And until the next time.